Here's another one of the flying stories. I got just a few of those that may be worth telling. I was a check airman on a 757, 767 for a while, and probably this would have been 2012. I was on a 757 trip to Dublin with a student, first officer student, new first officer on the airplane. And we laid over and had a great layover there in Dublin. We're going to fly back early the next morning to Charlotte. And we took off. First officer's flying, give him, the legs to get him experience. And we had a 4-man crew. So what that meant was I had another, besides the first officer that I'm training, I had 2 other first officers. And only 2 of us would be up front at any time. When I took a break, my student would take a break in the back, and the 2 other first officers would come forward and man the aircraft during that time. So they're on their break in the back, and we've passed the middle of the Atlantic coming back towards Gander, Newfoundland. And I don't know what it was. It was just a weird sensation. I think just from experience in the airplane, you could tell something was different. And I looked around at the instruments, and the speed was faster than normal. I think I want to say we cruised at 7.8, Mach 7.8, and we were at like 8.1 or something, really a lot faster than we normally would be cruising. So I looked over, and about that time, one of the engine gauges showed that one of the engines was exceeding the limits on speed, which is very unusual. Never seen it before. So I reached up and took the thrust lever and retarded it, pulled it back, and that should reduce the speed of the engine. It didn't. It stayed exactly where it was, as if the thrust lever was not connected, like it didn't work. Virtually went all the way to idle with it. It didn't make any difference. And the engine speed on that gauge was based on a percentage of its maximum RPM. So 100% is all you would develop. Well, it was 111%. So it was clearly grossly overspeeding. And I couldn't control it with the thrust lever. So I turned to the first officer. I said, we need to shut it down. So we had a little shutdown checklist. We did it quick. The good news about this is that as a check airman, I did this all the time in the simulator, training people and doing it myself. And the first officer had just come out of school. He had been trained just within a week to do these same maneuvers. Where it gets complicated, the shutdown of the engine is not hard, just a couple of switches and you're in business. Where it's complicated is you have to get off the track. You follow in line other aircraft crossing the Atlantic. And your spacing between you is based on the fact that you're all doing relatively the same speed. So if one person can't maintain the speed, for example, us only on one engine, we have to get off of that track, which is basically just a road, set of waypoints across the Atlantic that we're following, and the group of other aircraft that we're all following this same route. We're nose to tail. So we have to get off that track, and we have to do it fairly rapidly because we're going to slow up fast, and the guy behind us is going to come, into our airspace. So we have to do that. We turn off. We have some radio calls we make where we were on high frequency, which you don't monitor. You can call Gander, which we did, and we declared an emergency. And pan, and so we told them we were getting off the track. We'd lost an engine, and we wanted to go to Gander. So they cleared us. Actually, they didn't clear us. They said, descend your discretion and let us know when you're below 28,000 feet. We did. with 27,000. That's not the best altitude to go as fast as we wanted to go to Gander. So we continued our descent with a clearance down to 24,000, and they cleared us direct Gander. It was 543 miles on one engine, and it took about an hour and 40 from the time the engine failed to the time we got there and landed. And I took over the aircraft and flew and landed their hand-flown single engine at Gander. And the company sent up an Airbus to pick up our passengers and the crew. And we returned to Charlotte that night. We got there at maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I got home after midnight to Atlanta. It was a really long day. We'd been up, since midnight the day before. But it worked out really well. All our procedures worked great. The passengers were very pleased with the outcome, obviously. And it shows you the power of training, and I was very pleased with the way it came out. The other two pilots in the back came forward within just a minute or two, and I put them to work doing some things. Had one of them, a female that was very, very eloquent. I had her on the PA making announcements about every 15 minutes, updating the passengers on our status. Nothing's changed. Everything's good. Just relax. We'll have you on the ground shortly. And then the other guy had him liaison with the flight attendants over their concerns that they might have to ditch or anything like that. Of course, we didn't. Wasn't a concern. But an interesting story. My only engine failure at the airline. It worked out great. They sent some mechanics up. They borescoped the engine, and the airplane was able to fly home the next day. I'm not sure what other kind of maintenance. I found out that both engines had been changed recently, but the test flights that were necessary to do a transatlantic had been done. But one of the components there, the fuel control unit, had failed, and it caused the engine to overspeed. That was the deal with that. My only engine failure.